Hey, so I'm Wildling again today, and I thought I'd show you a little bit, of a tour of the engine rooms. So each we have an engine room on each side of the boat, being a catamaran with the engine in each hull. So there's a hatch here, kind of in the transom area where the engine is located. And what I'll do is, you can see the engine down inside. What I'll do is I'll climb down in there and I'll take a look around at what's inside. Okay, so we're inside the engine room, and it's a little bit cramped in here, so it might be a little bit difficult to see everything, but we'll see what we can accomplish. So first of all, there's the engine right here. So let me just scan along it because I'm actually pretty close to it. So it's a Volvo D275, so it's pretty much a 55 horsepower engine with a turbocharger on it. This is the turbo here, you can see at the back here. So it boosts the power and torque off the normal engine. There's the turbo inlet coming through there, and behind you can see this big black hose back here which goes to a muffler, and then out, if you can see that, I don't know if you can, out the side of the boat. So that's the exit for the turbo. A few things else on the engine here. You can see down in this section right here, this is the sail drive. So this basically transfers the power, rotating power of the engine, or the crankshaft of the engine, into the propeller. Goes through a reduction gearbox and drives the prop at I think it's a 2.19 to 1 reduction ratio on there. You've got a little, few little things here. Got a little, there's oil in here. You have to check the oil. Make sure that it's the right level and it's clean. Sometimes you can get a water leak on the shaft seal where the shaft exits the sail drive under the boat before it connects to the propeller. And if water leaks in there, it gets inside the gearbox, and you'll be able to tell that when you check the oil here if it's milky or not. It should be a nice clear kind of clean oil, and if it's not, if it's like cloudy or looks like you've literally poured milk into it, you know you're getting salt water in, so that's a problem. This one is the new models of these. This is the 150S sail drive. There's a tube here that allows you to completely drain and replace the oil in the drive unit while the boat's still in the water. The older models of these, like the 120 and the one, I think it was the 130, on the older models, you couldn't do that, so you pretty much had to pull the boat out of the water to replace the oil, and that's a much more difficult process, obviously, and not always possible when you're doing long distance cruising. Okay, so other kind of things on the engine here, while we're still kind of looking at the engine, we'll go back past the turbo. You can see the little row of glow plugs here. These are little glow plugs that heat up red hot and fire the high pressure diesel air mixture. And you've got the injector system. These are the injectors right here. You can see them each for each cylinder. It's a 4-cylinder engine. And over here you've got the oil dipstick for the engine, and then right here, this little thing here is it's actually a little priming system. If you get an airlock, sometimes you can get an air in the fuel line or an airlock in the fuel line, and it happens every now and again, particularly if you change a fuel filter. So if you do that, the engine won't start. It'll just crank and won't start. If that happens, this is a good thing to check. You undo this little screw, and you let the and you can push here. You can feel there's pressure on it now. If there's air in here, this will just sort of just go up and down really with no resistance. So you open this up and make sure you have a rag here, and then pump this a few times until the air kind of comes out, and you've got your clean fuel back again. Close this up and then try the engine again. It should start right up. So that's a kind of a handy thing to know. Happened to us on this boat one time when we filled up the tanks. For some reason there must have been turbulence or something in the diesel that was going in, and it created an airlock in the fuel line, but it's easy to fix. So down under the side here, I'll just move the camera down so you can see. Right here you can see the engine mount where it's mounted on the base there, and it's the oil filter, so that has to be cleaned or changed, replaced actually. They don't clean, you replace them periodically. There's also a fuel filter here, this little guy just up here. So that's sort of the what we call the secondary fuel filter, or the fine particle fuel filter is on the engine. Same thing, you change those usually every few months or so. And let's go forward back over here a little bit and just move around because it's a little bit cramped, so I can show you the rest of the stuff here. Okay, so right, here we go. Okay, so see the dipstick, the throttle cable coming through here. There's an emergency stop, so if you for some reason you can't stop the engine with the control panel up by the helm, you can just pull this guy down and it will cut the fuel supply to the engine and it will stop it. So it's good to know where your emergency stop is on a marine engine, because you never know what might happen, and it could be an emergency situation and you just need to stop the engine. This is how you do it. Over here there's the primary fuel filter. So this is pretty much going to filter out all the bigger particles before they go over into the fuel, goes into the engine, and then it goes through that fine filter I just showed you a second ago. Okay, on top here is the engine alternator, and that charges the starting battery for the engine, and the starting battery for the engine is just over here. So just a battery kind of sitting in the engine compartment. Its only function is to start the engine. Each engine has one, so you don't have to worry about if you flatten the house batteries because you've used too many appliances or something. You can still start your engines because these are dedicated batteries. So that alternator, all that alternator does, it's a 12-volt alternator to charge the 12-volt starting battery. So that's all it does. It charges that battery. And then we'll go down and look into the front of the engine here, and you can kind of see the belts, drive belts there. And back over this other side, down over here, this is the main alternator that charges the house battery system. So this is a 24-volt, 110 amp alternator. So it's a pretty massive alternator. You can see on this the big corrugated drive belt system they've got here. It's just pretty beefy, and basically transfers the engine power over into the alternators, and it's a really nice bracket. On the 55 horsepower they use these thin belts, and it's just really kind of not a very strong or not as robust a system as this one, so I kind of like this. The other thing to look at down here on the front of the engine, this little spot here, so obviously with these belts you've got to check them periodically and make sure they're nice and tight and everything's fine and they're not worn or cracked or anything. And then down here in the front, this little thing here is the main water pump, so the seawater pump. So this pumps seawater through the engine cooling system to cool it down. So it's kind of like a water pump in a car that circulates the water through the radiator. So this guy, periodically you have to take these all 4 screws out, pull the cap off, and there's a little rubber impeller in there with little blades that run alongside. Sometimes those blades can get broken or damaged. So if for some reason the engine overheats and stops, the first thing you want to do is check this. So pretty much just pull it open, check the impeller, and if you need to change it, change it. Always carry a couple of spare impellers when you're at sea. Down over here there's a couple of bilge pumps, so if we get any water leaks into the engine compartment, they'll filter them out. And over on the other side of the engine, over here we've got fuse block for the engine, kind of electrical controls, a whole bunch of cables and things. And then over here is the main seawater filter for the water coming into the engine cooling system. And so pretty much it's got a screw on top that you unscrew, and a basket in there. You can sort of see that, and you have to not change that bit, but pretty much check it every day or so while you're sailing, because if there's any large particles and debris in there, you want to clean it out so they don't get into the engine. So that's one of the kind of daily checks you need to do. Okay, so that's pretty much kind of a look at the engine. A few other things that are in the engine compartment. We're in the starboard engine compartment. Each one's a little bit different because we've got different equipment that we've located in the engine rooms. I'll just get comfortable here, I can show you. Alright, so this is the steering gear. So pretty much it's a cable steering system, which is really nice because it gives you a very direct connection to the hull. Unlike the hydraulic systems, which kind of like power steering in a car, you can't really feel the feedback on the steering system as well. So when you're driving the boat, it's nice to have some feeling of the water running over the rudders and feel the response and pressure on the rudders from the helm. And this is a cable quadrant system that lets you do that. So the thing to check on this is make sure the the cables are the right tension. They kind of stretch a little bit over time. There's an adjuster just over here that you need to make sure, and just sort of checking everything's the right tension on them. And then you've got the pinion system that connects to the rudders, and there's one of these on each side, and I'll show you. So this is the rudder stock right here, and you can see that the pinion kind of connects it over to the helm, and then there's another bar that connects it over to the autopilot. And I'm just kind of twisted around, so I'm going to move so you can see that. Okay, there's the autopilot motor there and gearbox, and so basically that's just going to turn through this gearbox here. Going to turn this bar back and forth. There's also a sensor, an angle sensor here, which tells us the angle of the rudder, so we can see that at the autopilot. I showed you that on the instrument video. And then it just connects this as it moves back and forth. Over here it moves back and forth, pushes and pulls this bar, and that connects to the rudder here and changes the angle of the rudder. Okay, so other stuff in here to see. So while we're over in this part, looking at the back of the boat right now. So that's the back of the boat right there. So we've got a few things here. We've got the antenna tuner for the HF radio. So pretty much what happens is a lot of different frequencies on the HF radio. It goes from 3 megahertz all the way up to 30 megahertz, or thereabouts, actually a little less than 3, like 2.2. So that's a pretty wide frequency range, and so in order to match the antenna, which is, I'm just going to show you outside, there's the antenna right there. So it goes up, it's this big 8-meter whip antenna, and so because it's only 8 meters and we need to get wavelengths of up to like 160 meters or whatever it is, there's some pretty long wavelengths. This antenna tuner will match the actual antenna to the frequency, so it uses some magic inside there to essentially modify what the radio is seeing as far as the length of the antenna, so it can pick up a fractional wave of the actual wave being broadcast. So that's pretty nice. There's also a ground plane off there. This comes down and it sort of loops. You can see back in here, this little thing looks like a hose, and it's kind of looping back around in there, and it just runs around. Sorry, it just runs around there like that. Just pretty much a big sort of, it's actually a counterpoise, so it provides the other part of the grounding system. A lot of boats use a ground plate that is attached to the hull of the boat. The problem with ground plates is they foul very easily, so there's a lot of marine life grows on them, and they also they tend to corrode. The cabling system that connects to them corrodes, and they slow the boat down, and they don't work very well after a while. So this is kind of a new technology that's being used. Some people are using it. It's some folks think it's kind of doesn't make any sense and can never work, but it actually works really, really well. And a lot of the people testing it have said it's the best signal and performance from their radios they've ever had. So you just put this little, they call it a KISS, K-I-S-S, counterpoise, and I've got it on this and I've tried it out and it seems to work really well. Okay, over here you have the micro commander, which is the control system for the electronic helm station. So essentially electronic signal of the helm, so the engine controls, so the throttle and gear, forward and reverse gear, is sent through here from the engine control stations at the helms, and it's transferred into a hydraulic force, or a cable. I think it's a hydraulic, I'm not sure, I haven't looked inside that thing. But anyway, it basically is these cables connected around, and they connect to both the throttle and the gear shift to shift it from forward to reverse. So that allows us to use either helm station. It controls at either helm station to control the engines through just an electronic system. That's what that does. Over here we have the water maker. So the water maker is a 100 litre an hour desalator system. Very simple, very easy to use. It's all DC. It actually has it's a dual mode, this one, which is kind of interesting. It's got a DC motor here, which normally we'd use running off the battery. So a 24 volt DC motor, and that runs the water maker from the batteries. And then over here there's also a motor that's coupled to it, which is an AC motor, so you can use it in AC as well. And the reason they do this is for boats that have diesel generators, so AC electrical generators. Sometimes folks like to prefer to run it off their generator rather than run it off their batteries, because then they don't have to just recharge their batteries. We don't have a generator on Wildling. We use hydrogen and solar, and then the engine alternators when we need to run all of our systems. So we've avoided the kind of the extra complexity and weight of a generator. But if we ever did want to put a generator on the boat, this is an option. So it takes a little bit of weight, which is not my most favorite thing in the world, but it was pretty much the same price, or thereabouts, and I decided to go ahead and put it on, and if we ever need to use it we can. So down here are the membranes. So pretty much they are where the reverse osmosis occurs. So essentially what's happening here is there's a high salt water or seawater is coming in. It's pressurized to a very, very high pressure, and the salt is flushed away as a brine. It goes overboard, and the fresh water is forced through the little tiny porous membranes. The salt particles are too big, so they basically get flushed out, and the fresh water can pass through, and so it ends up with fresh water going into your water tanks. That's pretty cool thing, and pretty important when you're cruising. Let's see, the only other thing to show you in this engine room, I think, that we haven't looked at, hang on here and I'll move around again and just point back forward again, is okay, so down here there's two freshwater pumps that basically pressurize water from the main water tanks in the boat, and then deliver pressurized water to the rest of the boat. So we tend to use them one at a time, so we don't tend to have them both on. So we'll work off one tank, and then when that tank gets low, I'll usually make water to top it up. We'll switch over to the other tank, and we switch back and forth as we go. So if there's ever a problem, with a pump or something happening, we don't drain both tanks accidentally or something like that. So tend to just run them one at a time. Okay, so that's pretty much what's going on in the starboard engine room. I'll stop there and I'll go over and show you a few things that are in the port engine room that are a little different than the starboard. Okay, so here we are in the port engine room, and there's a few things that are a little bit different in here. Basically the engine's the same, so it's a 75 horsepower turbocharged Volvo, 4-cylinder Volvo, exactly the same as the other one. And here's your starting battery. Got our big house battery charging alternator. It's a 110 amp 24 volt house battery charger for the lithium batteries. You've got the little 12 volt alternator to charge the starting battery for the engine. Over here to the side there's the primary fuel filter, just the same as the other side, but mounted in a different place. Over here is the hot water heater tank. So this little guy has a few kind of modes of operation. You can either run it off AC, so if you're at the dock, you can plug your power into the dock and use the shore power to heat your water. When you run the engines, water circulates through the engine and then into the water heater and then back in through the engine, so you actually use the engine water cooling system to heat the water when you're motoring, and then we can run the inverters to heat the water as well. So it's pretty flexible and works fine. Over here there's the little decal that the Australian marine authorities use to tell what our official number is, so it's located there. It has to be by law affixed to a bulkhead inside the boat, and so that's what that is. So on this bulkhead here, we're actually looking forward, right? So the front of the engine is here, and this is the bulkhead in the forward part of the engine compartment. So this this little panel here is the control system for the hydro generator. So we have a 600 watt hydro generator that basically we can it fixes to the back of the boat, and we lower it into the water, and it spins a little propeller turbine that creates 24 volts, or actually 26 point something volts for charging. And it's because this boat is very fast, we need to be able to adjust the angle of the propeller, the little propeller on the turbine, so it doesn't spin too fast and chew itself to pieces. And we use this sort of what they call the racing version of it, which uses a little hydraulic system to vary the pitch of the propeller blades to make sure that it stays at a constant speed and doesn't overload. So that's what this little tiny bottle is here, reservoir, which is a hydraulic fluid that connects. There's a little just connector on the back of the boat where you connect the power and the hydraulic line to the hydrogen. So I'll do another video of how that works once we're underway at one point, so you can kind of see how the hydrogen system works. But it works great, and even in pretty rough seas and so on, and varying speeds, and gives a lot of power charging. So I think the only other thing in here we haven't looked at, this little guy with the 3 lights on right there, that's the alternator regulator. Basically it just manages the output of the 24 volt, the lithium battery charging alternators, and make sure that we've got the right amount of charge going into the main battery bank. So I think that's pretty much everything here. Oh, one other thing, look around here and up. See, I think you can see this little reservoir here. That is the water fill reservoir for the engine cooling water. And the reason that it's placed up here high, it's actually on a little bracket, and you can sort of pop it up and move it out, so if you need to fill it, it's pretty easy to do. And the reason it's up there high is because on this side we have the hot water tank, and we need to have the reservoir above the height of the hot water tank so that it doesn't overflow out of the engine. It's normally, you've got you can see down here on the engine, this is the cap for the cooling system, the little cooling reservoir that basically is the whole water jacket that is around there. It cools the cylinders and so on of the engine. So this one, the other one, you just had the cap on the other side, so we just pull the cap off and check the level. On this one, there's the hose that kind of runs around and up to our reservoir, and so we need to be able to, when we check the water level on this one, we need to use the reservoir. So it's a little less convenient, but you know, it's fine once you kind of figure out how to do it. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the port engine room.